Hey everyone, welcome back to Workshop Quick Takes. Thanks for joining us again today. Got another episode of Project XJ coming up. We are going to be working on the 2000 Jeep Cherokee. Today's project should be fairly straightforward. It is shock absorbers, and since this vehicle uses two solid axles, does not require anything unusual. You just change the shocks themselves. They're not too expensive depending on what you want, and they're fairly straightforward to do. The exception will be if you have a vehicle from the Rust Belt, in which case the rears in particular have a tendency to break off the top bolts. We'll look at that more when we get to there. Just a quick look at the goods we've got here. These are the two rears. This is Monroe 37027. This is their OE Spectrum brand. Depending who you talk to, the OE Spectrums for the front and either the OE Spectrums or the Gabriel shocks for the rear tend to give the closest to an OE ride. Maybe not quite as suitable for trail use, but today I just need something cheap that I can get on there, and this will do the trick. That attaches to a bolt down on the axle, and then this is the upper bar pin attachment. No other hardware is required for the rears. The front, that's Monroe 37083, again, still the OE Spectrum. That there has two bolt attachment points down at the bottom, and then on top here we have this long bolt formed in there. That does require extra hardware, and that's going to be these two washers and these two bushings along with the top nut. Taking a look at the top, we've got one of our shock bolts right there. That one is normal, other than the bushing getting pretty soft and squished. This one over here, however, we've talked about before, it has a problem. The problem is that the bolt was cross-threaded by a previous owner, and I've tried reinstalling another bushing under there that was taller and would sort of work, but it's breaking up and starting to rattle over there. And since I have a choice between either replacing the shock for about 40 bucks or spending at least $40 on a threading kit and a bushing kit and whatever else, I think it's just time to change the shocks. You might be able to do this job without even removing the front wheels, but it's going to be a little cramped in there, so let's just give ourselves the working room. So since I'm removing the front wheels, I want to loosen the lug nuts before the tires are off the ground. That way they don't spin on me. These are the OE lug nuts, and they will remove nicely enough with a 19. And I'm going to loosen them in a star pattern. Not because it's necessary so much when loosening them, but it does remind me to put them on in a star pattern when I tighten them again later. And that's important for equalizing the pressure around a hub assembly. Alright, because this differential is off center, I've lifted that driver's side way off the floor and the passenger side is just barely swinging. But that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and put that one under the axle right there. Then I'm going to notch this one up to the same height. Adjust it. But now as I start to drop the Jeep, it's going to settle on that one first and then start to swing back this way, which will lift that side over there off the ground and settle that one down. Let's do it very slowly though, because I'm going to have to reposition that jack stand. I can't possibly aim it from right here. That one's lining up where it should. And it's set. Now this one looks like it's just about ready to go into place. Okay, there we are. Since I don't need to get into the differential today, I'm just going to leave the jack lightly tensioned under it as a fail-safe. That way if one of these drops, the weight will shift to the jack, but it's not going to bounce on the jack. Hopefully. Final safety step. Since this wheel's not going to get in the way, I'm going to put it right there under the front end. As a last resort, if something drops, I might lose a wheel, but I won't lose a Jeep. Or a head. Okay, before proceeding further below, I'm just going to make sure that this top nut is actually loose. I'm fairly sure it is based on past experience, but let's get the socket and find out. Okay, I actually found a gear wrench that's a 14, and it looks like it fits on there nicely. I saw the top part starting to turn. There is, of course, a little additional spot there for another wrench attachment, but in this case, I don't think we'll even need it. Okay, we'll finish dealing with that later, but we know for sure it's loose. That one there is definitely more of a pickle, just because I know it's cross-threaded on. These ones over here shouldn't be too bad, in part because I've replaced the hardware before, so I know it's not too rusty. But keep in mind, it is bolted through top to bottom, so I need to be able to handle both sides at once. Okay, I don't remember what the OE ones were. I think these might be exact replacements, but in any case, they're an SAE size, which means with today's metric hardware, I'm taking them off with 13s. Well, that's one anyway. Oh, that one wants to turn too. Not ideal, but it works. This would be a little easier to get at if I took the airbox out of the way, but since it's not a high torque nut, this works. Feels completely loose. So now then, this top piece here is just a washer and a bushing, and we'll be replacing it like in kind. Now the tricky part is, do I have to lower this down or not? This here obviously is kind of compressed. It wants to stay in there. So I either need to push it up somehow or pull it down. It looks like pulling it down might be an option. There's still gas pressure in it. That's what it looks like if it doesn't have a top hat on it. Unfortunately, that does allow grit and grime to get in here and slowly wear away at the seal. So here's one of our replacements. And I think the best way to get that in there is to go ahead and compress it the same way, and then as it rebounds, just let it rebound up into the channel. I'm not sure this one's pressurized at all. Wonder what that means. Let's check this other one, because if I got a bad one, there might still be time to go to town and buy one. Oh, yeah. Okay, I've got one bad strut, but I went ahead and put one good one in just to test fit, and then we'll look at the other one in detail. That kept tightening, but it's starting to cut into the bushing, so I'm hoping that's as far as it goes at this point. And then looking from this side, same thing. Now we just need to put the two bolts in down there. And since these bolts were getting a little squishy, just gonna spray a little rust converter on them. Kind of acting as a lubricant, so I'm hoping that doesn't screw up the torquing on these. Yep. Okay, that's one done. Those are torqued up, that's torqued up, and that's all there is to it. Let's go ahead and do the other side and walk through that. This Ryobi impact gun is only capable of about 70, maybe 75 foot-pounds, so what I'm doing here is not over-torquing the bolts. Once I put it on the ground, then I'll use a torque wrench to set it properly. All right, now that we've changed that one out, you can see it's compressed down to a nice place, just like the previous one was. Hopefully that holds everything in tight. Now it's going back to removing this one. This one, of course, the bad one, cross-threaded. It's torn up the temporary bushing I tried putting in there, so there's no more putting it off. We got to get that out of there. Then down here, we have those two bar bolts. Those are both 13s. And then on the bottom as well, there's a pair of 13, and those are prevailing torque lock nuts. At least they are in the hardware I reinstalled. I don't know about the original, but we'll give it a shot. I do believe it wants to round off. How about this one? Oh, well, yeah, that was righty-tighty, wasn't it? Lefty-loosey. Let's try that again. Okay, that one's come loose. Let's get a little crud on it. It's been replaced, but it's starting to rust a bit again. Hopefully some anti-seize compound will help with that. Okay. Man, it really doesn't want to come off. If I have to, I'll grind it, but I don't want to. All right, let's try it. There we go. Hopefully we're done with this once and for all. And there's what I did to make that happen. That's not ideal on a new strut, but on an old one you need to pull off. Hey, if it works, it works. Yeah, bushing's just going to bits. Yeah, that was a temporary polyurethane bushing we put on there, and it's going to bits too. So this is well and truly done. See if we can at least push this thing down like we did on the other side. I think this one's a little stiffer. There we go. So there they are, both fronts. Do seem to still have some pressure charge in them, but at this point they're just good for the scrap pile. Okay. After a quick trip to the town, we went to the auto parts store. Go ahead and open up our bushing kit here. Put one of our washers down here, and also one of our bushings. And again, this has a small side and a big side. The big side is what goes up into the hole up there. So we want to do that. And then to get it in place, okay, so I can press this all the way, and then just let it settle down into place there. Good enough. Okay, a little anti-seize on our bolts, maybe even a lot. Drop those right through. So I'm going to come up under here. And that's about as tight as that needs to be. Okay, so that just leaves the top nut. Okay, so for this one, we still have our bushing. Again, it has the two sides. We want the fat side down into the hole. We also want to make sure that we're kind of centering that hole before we tighten everything up. Then we want a cupped washer with the cupped side down. And finally our top nut. Go ahead and put just a tiny bit of anti-seize on that. Okay, getting about the same as we were on the other side with the bushing actually starting to cut into the rubber there. So I think that's about as tight as that's going to be. Now I get to raise the back and do the process back there. Backside here's going to be more of the same story. We'll get the jack lined up and just start to tension it, and then we'll go ahead and loosen the lug bolts on the wheels before lifting and setting the jack stands. These shouldn't be too difficult to loosen though, because we have the emergency brake set. Okay, these rear shocks look pretty easy at first glance. This bottom bolt here comes off and normally that's okay. What can give you fits though is up here. Those two bolts there on what is called the bar pin, those can get really rusty in the chassis and just refuse to come out. Now on this one, the chassis is pretty clean. This one's been out before without too much trouble. I'm not sure about the one on the other side, but we'll take a look at that when we get to it. This one down here is a 19. I don't even know the torque spec on it, but I'm expecting a little trouble, so I've got the long breaker bar. And actually that's not so bad. Although for what it's worth, I think this is the one I previously reinstalled with anti-seize because I had to remove it. There we go. But these threads definitely didn't like that. And there's a washer right there. Helps hold on that bushing. And man, that thing got hot. And these two up here, smaller than 19s. Well, the 13 fits. Wonder if I'm gonna tear off the head again. Oh, that's not so bad. So that's how they come out if they're in a good mood. And that just slides off there. Interesting. That almost looks like it's been re-welded once, unless that really is factory. Now, in the event that those holes tear out and bad things happen and then you have to shoot new bolts through somehow, there is such a thing as a bar pin eliminator kit. So for those of you who come from really rusty states, it mounts a couple blocks up there permanently and then has some kind of snap-through bar, a bolt and nut, a pinned bar, I don't know, whatever they come up with. There's several different ways of doing it. And that pin then comes through here. So you actually pull this bar pin out of here and use just the bushing on the new shock. Since I do have this, we'll just shoot a little bit up in there and hopefully that helps add some additional life expectancy. Give that all a minute to dry, and while it is, we'll go around and start moving the other side. This one's a little trickier because it's on this side. It's got the e-brake cable coming around it. I'll probably have to remove the clip on top of the diff to actually get that cable loose. And then the shock absorber up there, but a couple of those bolts are a little trickier to get out as well because it's on this side, and the reason they put the shocks on opposite sides of a solid rear axle like this is to try and reduce axle wrap, which is the tendency of the axle to try and fold the leaf springs forward or backward under heavy torque. Looks like there's that really small tab bolt there on top of the differential. I think it'll loosen with a 10, and if I get that out of there, then the e-brake cable is loose and doesn't cause any more issues. And a 10 it is not. 3/8. There it is. We're clear of the shock now, so I just need to get the two shock bolts up there and see if they'll come out nice. Well, that's one. For those of you in the Rust Belt, I apologize if this is painful to watch, but for some reason these are coming out nicely. Although these shocks have been changed once before, so that might explain it. This one definitely still has some gas pressure in it. There we go. Let's go ahead and hit that with the black paint also. Make sure that has plenty of time to dry. We'll go finish the other side now. Try and compress this shock all the way and then get it up in there before it fully releases. Right on the money. Definitely should go in with a whole lot of anti-seize. Looks right. Do one final torque check with the manual ratchet, but otherwise, I believe that went in exactly where it's supposed to. Yeah, it's in good and tight. That one too. I wouldn't have thought this Ryobi Impact was capable of it, but I guess it is. That's probably as tight as it should be on a new bushing. One more to go. There we go. And there she is. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us again today. That was another episode of Workshop Quick Takes. Fairly easy job that you can do on your XJ. The only way you can really get in a lot of trouble on this one is if you have rust issues, and then you might be looking at bar pin eliminators on the rear shock top mounts. You might even run into a situation where the bottom bracket tears out on the front sometimes. In our case, coming from a relatively low rust state, it came right out and went right back in. Next question someone might have is, how are they? Well, we put these on about a year ago now, and since then they've been on the highway, they've been off-road, and I can say they work great. They're basically an OE replacement. So if you've got a stock height suspension or at most about 2 inches of lift, then these have more than enough travel to deal with it. Gas pressure and valving doesn't seem to be an issue either. They're mild enough on-road, and off-road, everything stays in control. Highly recommend them if you're just looking for the basic option. You have a tall lift, or if you need some kind of performance application, yeah, shop elsewhere. One thing we ran into though that was unfortunate is we ordered from a popular bargain online vendor, and they were shipping the shocks in their retail boxes inside a much larger box with little or no cushioning whatsoever, so they bounced around in the truck and were destroyed. So you saw the results of one of those on this episode. There was actually a second one that was so bad when it arrived, leaking oil and everything, that we exchanged it right away. You can get these locally. You can also get them from more reputable vendors for a little bit higher price, and it's probably worth it just to avoid the pain. But that gets us to our conclusion. So thanks for joining us again today, and we'll see you again next time, whenever that is. Has anyone seen my phone?